Hello and welcome to 365 Days Towards Racial Change. My name is Tomlins Nyback, and we're here talking about Black issues here in America, concerned for Black well-being, the Black plight, Black issues. Are they real? Do they exist? I'll tell you a little story. I travel. I work at night, so I travel by public transportation. To my job, and so last night I was approached by a Black man, vagrant, insane, probably had spent his recent life on a lot of drugs and just being outdoors. It's warmer now, so you want to see a lot of that. But it was the first time that an individual like that in a long time invaded my space, this Black man. And I came very close to engaging him physically, but, you know, I recognized his state of mind and what the forces that brought him there, even to being in my space at that particular time. You know, we are both individuals at the mercy, to a degree, of powerful white forces. You know, we have to work, or if we don't work, we go into a homeless state. You know, that's overall, that's not my idea of the world that's put in place for us. A world energized and mobilized by this white structure that is rapistic and takes a lot of energy to keep up with. You know, I am praying hard for a better kind of afterlife. So that's an example, though, of what. See, and the thing is, the majority of Black folks go through that. We're a minority in the country where we only represent 12 million or so people. Yet we are bearing so much dysfunction and, excuse me, so much misfortune in the nation. And it's sad. It's sad. So you know, two big ideas that dominate my thinking as I go through this here process is one about the mind of America, and that has two parts. First part is, does the Black mind still perpetuate itself? The Black mind of vulnerability, ignorance, passivity in this nation in regards to what's really going on, how things really work in America. And the other side of that same coin is for white power, the white entitlement. Is that being passed on from generation to generation? Is there a legacy of just white domination that we just can never escape or get around in the world? That's a huge problem here in America. The second thought is for financial literacy. Do we understand how money works? Do we understand the sources of wealth, the same way that white entitlement and power is passed on from generation to generation? In the same way, for the understanding of wealth and money. You know, the best blacks know how to do in general is open a bank account or participate in maybe whatever their employment is offering. But we need to go beyond that, and education and literacy, and that will arm us into making better, more informed choices, about holding on to more of our dollars, be more um, suspect on who we spend our money with, and all these things. I'm inspired by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. I read 3 of his works. I want you to get these books because he understands what he's talking about when he talks about the dynamic and the struggle between, well, not a struggle between, it's a domination, it's a white domination, but for black people to get better acquainted with what's really going on, what's really working and what's not here in America. First book I read of his was A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. If you don't get any book, or if you only get one book, get that one. That's the one I highly recommend the most. Because black people, we're going to talk about this more in a moment, and it's a reflection on the story I told you at the top of this piece. Black people need to understand their position, the history, systemic issues that have us where we're at in America. Black labor, white wealth, search for power and economic justice. And PowerNomics, Dr. Anderson's national plan to empower Black America. You can find Dr. Anderson at PowerNomics.com and the Heritage Institute in Washington, D.C. I've never met him. If you run into him, please mention my name and tell him all about what's going on here at 365 days towards racial change. We're in PowerNomics today in the introduction, page 17, XVII, for those Roman numeral people that may be Roman numerally challenged. That's where we're at today. But getting blacks to understand their position, their plight is an issue. How do this black man in this state, in my space, it does nothing to go violently or, go overboard with trying to educate him, because his mind is not there. He first needs to have a wake up. He first needs to be kind of sobered up, cleaned up in a way, brought to a state of normalcy to see how grievous his wound is in the world. Black folks need that in a sense too. I think there's a high degree of denial. We look at our little successes here and there, and we're fooled into thinking that we're going in a state or a space of success and prosperity, and we're hanging right in there with the Joneses. But that is not that's just not the case. That's a facade. That's an illusion. And the white power and entitlement privilege loves us to think that, but we're getting right along and participating just as well as they are, when we are not. So that's the first hurdle, the first plight of black people is to get past our denial. You know, that's our first plight. We need to understand the white advantage, how it's inherited, is derived from their power and all that, but it's inherited from their roots and institutions go way back into the colonial days, in the days of the way they've conquered. You know, go to any country. You know, you look at the indigenous people, the Aboriginal people, original people, and you can know who conquered them by what language they speak. You know, okay, France was here, Portugal was here, Spain was over here, England over there. You know, um, this is an English-speaking country, so we have a heavy English influence going on here. And these white advantages, European white advantages, go back quite far. Black people need to understand 400 plus years slavery, semi-slavery, Jim Crowism, something called benign neglect. We go over this every once in a while, but it's good to stay up on it because the pressure is constant. We need to be constantly vigilant, constantly reminded, educated. You know, it's like black folks, this shouldn't be anything new. This shouldn't be news to black folks. You know, ask black folks why they go to church. It's like, you know, after so much time, you know, after a decade or so, you're going to know the Bible pretty well and understand God's plan and things like that. But you got to go back because first the Bible's a pretty thick book and religion is vast. So you got to go back and be reminded and have a checkup every once in a while. It's very important. Same way here. We need to keep coming back to the dysfunctions, to the disparities, the vulnerabilities, systemic and historical lies presented to us over and over through history. We have to know our history, understand some of our own sour spots, a Dred Scott decision, Brown v. Board of Education, you know, was kind of almost the epitome of the social integration policy that didn't help blacks. You know, it was just Brown v. Board of Education just brought us more into the institution of being, you know, socialized, and we were very much, it was the epitome you know, of being, we were very much, what's the word I'm looking for? Conditioned by white society when we kind of fell for that. And instead of gathering our own resources, demanding our own schools, well, you know, we inserted ourselves to an infrastructure already there and present where just the conditioning could be even more closely monitored. I mean, if you think about it. So those are some of the problems with Brown v. Board of Education, and there's others, the Freedmen's Bank. You know, these are things I've only just recently stumbled upon in this year, and we've got a long way to go to, as a group, to keep some of those things in mind. You know, outside of slavery and our ancestors being lied to, manipulated, used, kidnapped, raped, lynched, burned, abused, separated from their families, and the list just goes on and on, even into contemporary times where they're shooting black young men in the back, especially white police officers, and the damage done. You know, how I feel insecure. I mean, that's supposed to be the law enforcement, yet I feel almost my most insecure when I'm around them. um, so, you know, those are things we got to keep in front of our mind. And then maybe we can start looking for ways of change to get us into positions where we'll be participating more accurately and freely in this white-dominated world. Oh, Dr. Anderson goes on. He tells us about structured monopolies, the maldistribution of wealth, how institutions are created, engaged to protect the white institution, the white power here in America. And I mean, you can think of it. One, I'll just tell you the latest. I finally got my head around some of my argument against this universal health care. They say the health care is a right, yet they're dragging money out of my wallet. Well, tell me what right in America exists on the books configured in this way where I'm compelled to participate in it. I have the right to vote. I'm never dragged to the voting booth. I have the right to marry. I have yet to receive a letter informing me of the day to be at the courthouse to meet my bride. Um, you know, the health care, sure, it's a right, but it's a right that I should be able to have the power to choose from. You know, what they've got is some compulsory tax on there. And I'm against it because I know my money isn't spent, it's not directed towards my community. You know, I'm not seeing any benefit from it. You know, they want me to, pre-supply all these things. But, you know, these insurance companies, they need to step up. You know, they want it to be an insurance company. Healthcare people want it to be healthcare people, you know, so they have to be in their business, but instead they rape American people. They put an incredibly strong burden on the pocketbooks of Black Americans. It'd be interesting to see, you know, what was going on financially to make private money such a target. You know, was there, you know, a couple things happened. You know, we had the 2008 crash, a big old stock market crash and bubbles and things like that. And then we have this healthcare, all this financial stuff happened, and it's kind of, you know, I haven't done any research, but it would be interesting to see what was going on in America to make the dollar such a target. Now, it's always a target for white power and the white institution that controls and runs a lot of things. But you saw an acute shift, you know, in politics and thought, crashes in the stock market, and everything in between. It's just an incredible, what an incredible coincidence to happen in that way. So white people are always going to stay well ahead of the curve. They're always going to be well supplied. The game is fixed and rigged in their favor. And Black folks need to get with being honest about that. We can find a lot of issues of discrimination for us in business from other groups, discrimination where we live, a discrimination of what kind of care we get with healthcare. I remember I've been in and out of missions and rehabs for a long time. I think I've told this story before, and this happened consistently, actually, where I'd go be in a city looking for some care, finally sobered up enough to want to get cleaned up a little bit, and so here I go making my move, and I go, the head office, so to speak, is usually kind of in white suburbia or a secure space. But then once they go off a little checklist for the demographics, and once they get to race or color or whatnot, all of a sudden I'm shipped off back down to the hood where they're handling crack almost right down the corner from the house that I'm assigned to, and I'm like drafted to some remote outpost for getting my health care instead of staying where the white folks are at and getting my care and having some peace of mind. There are differences in the environment. So that's interesting. When we think about the discriminations that happen here in America, in American society. Two big pillars of Dr. Anderson's solution. We'll go into this more depth and it's more review because we've talked about it consistently already. One is ethno-aggregation, where we be just as exclusive in our business and practices and dealings as the Asians, as white folks, as Hispanics. We don't have the privilege so much of a language barrier to erect, but we have this. This is a pretty good start. It's apparent in our day-to-day lives. So ethno-aggregation, along with vertical integration, and that is just where, same way the Asians, whites, Hispanics, anybody you can name, any group, Arabs, where they control the production from raw materials to finished product or finished service. That's vertical integration. Those two dimensions are very important. Those two pillars will propel us. But we got a little ways to go. We got to massage our own issues and our own problems to a great degree. So we're going to rehash some stuff and keep on moving through this year. That's day 138 out of the way. 365 days towards racial change. I'm Tom Nyback, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.